No one inside the theatre that evening expected silence to fall so suddenly. Silence sharp enough to make the air feel heavier than the stage lights. Sam Heughan had just stepped backstage after a rehearsal of Macbeth, sweat still tracing along his jawline, when a member of the production team hurried toward him with a folded letter in hand. "It's from Sir Ian McKellen," she whispered, as if saying the name too loudly might summon the legend himself. Sam froze. Ian McKellen wasn't just another actor leaving a polite message of encouragement. He was the Macbeth, an icon whose portrayal still haunted stages around the world. For someone stepping into the same tortured role, receiving a message from him felt less like a gesture and more like a test. The room seemed to shrink around Sam as he held the envelope, sensing the weight of whatever waited inside. What could McKellen have said? A blessing? A warning? Or something far more personal? Sam carefully unfolded the letter. His expression shifted, first surprise, then confusion, then something that made the crew exchange nervous glances. The tension in his shoulders tightened as his eyes scanned each line. The atmosphere pressed closer, as if everyone were holding a breath at the same time. The message wasn't long, but every word carried the gravity of someone who had lived inside Macbeth's darkness for decades. And as Sam read it, memories from his own turbulent journey surfaced. The criticisms about his acting depth, the scandals that magnified his personal life, the pressure of living up to fan expectations after years of being romanticized through Outlander. Playing Macbeth wasn't just another role for him, it was a battle against every doubt that had ever shadowed his career. He stepped backward slightly, as though the letter itself had pushed him. "Are you all right?" someone asked. Sam didn't answer. He looked shaken, genuinely shaken, as if Ian McKellen had reached across generations to speak directly to the most vulnerable part of him. Outside, journalists were already buzzing about Sam's upcoming run with Macbeth. Some praised his courage for choosing such a psychologically brutal role. Others mocked him, claiming he was only a pretty face trying to imitate giants. Sam had grown used to noise, but this letter, this was different. This wasn't noise. This was truth delivered from someone who had carried the crown of madness long before him. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to steady the storm building inside. The letter wasn't a compliment. It wasn't a condemnation either. It was something more unnerving, a challenge, a message reminding him that Macbeth was not a character, he was a mirror. And anyone who dared step into that mirror had to face the rawest parts of themselves. Sam felt a chill crawl down his spine as one specific sentence replayed in his mind. It was powerful enough to make his hands tremble slightly, strong enough that even the crew sensed the shift in the room. He folded the letter again, this time more slowly, as if acknowledging the importance of what he had just read. The people around him waited, but he stayed silent, lost in thoughts that stretched far beyond the theater walls. The weight of expectation, legacy, and personal demons had suddenly fused into one. For the first time since the start of rehearsals, Sam questioned whether he was truly ready. But what did Ian McKellen actually say? And why did it shake Sam so deeply? Those answers would soon come to light, but the emotional blow had already struck, leaving Sam standing alone with a message that carried more power than applause, reviews, or headlines. It was the kind of message that could change a performance, or change a man. Sam stood in the dim corridor behind the stage, the letter still warm from his grip. He read it again, this time aloud in a whisper, as if speaking the words might help him understand their full weight. Macbeth, McKellen had written, exposes the part of you that you try the hardest to hide. If you cannot confront that darkness, it will swallow you long before the audience applauds. It wasn't advice. It was a warning. And Sam felt it strike precisely where he was most vulnerable. All these years, he had been chasing roles that showcased strength, tenderness, heroism, characters who carried burdens but never fully broke. But Macbeth was different. Macbeth demanded a soul stripped bare. A man consumed by ambition, fear, and guilt. A man who could not run from himself. Sam walked toward the dressing room, letter still in hand, as memories from his own life began to surface like ghosts. The rumors about his relationships. The accusations that he hid behind charm. The whispers that he was too safe to reach true darkness in his performances. He remembered critics calling him polished but predictable. And he remembered how deeply those words had lingered, even while he pretended they didn't matter. He closed the dressing room door behind him and stared at his reflection under the harsh bulbs. The makeup for Macbeth smeared slightly from rehearsal, creating a shadowy, broken version of himself in the mirror. For a moment, he didn't see Sam Heughan, the beloved star, the charismatic Scot, the fan favorite. He saw a man who carried secrets, doubts, and unspoken fears. A man far closer to Macbeth than he wanted to admit. He opened the letter once more. There was a second line he hadn't shared with anyone, one that hit even deeper. The audience does not need you to act Macbeth. They need you to become him. Sam exhaled sharply. Becoming Macbeth meant surrender. It meant vulnerability. It meant letting the darkness in instead of keeping it locked behind the polished exterior the world expected of him. He read the final sentence quietly, almost reverently. Do not hold back. If you do, the stage will know. Something shifted inside him. The fear was still there, but beneath it, a spark ignited. A challenge, a calling, a hunger to prove not to critics, not to fans, but to himself that he could rise to the weight of this role. He stood up straighter. That night's run-through changed everything. As Sam stepped onto the stage again, the room felt different, charged with something electric. The crew sensed it before he spoke a word. His energy had shifted. His eyes carried a depth that hadn't been there hours earlier. The soft tremble from earlier transformed into controlled intensity. He began Macbeth's monologue, and each line left his lips raw, honest, and edged with pain. His voice cracked, not from weakness but authenticity. His movements sharpened, his gaze hollowed and burned at the same time. It was as if he had reached into the darkest part of himself and dragged it into the light. When he finished, the room was silent, not the uneasy silence from earlier, but an odd one. A silence that acknowledged a transformation. Someone finally whispered, that was different. Another murmured, Jesus, he found it. Sam didn't smile. He didn't bask in the compliments. He simply stood there, chest rising and falling, the weight of Macbeth no longer suffocating but grounding him. Later, alone again in his dressing room, he placed McKellen's letter gently on the counter. This time, he wasn't shaken. He felt something else, gratitude, determination, and a strange sense of calm, as if the message had unlocked a truth he'd been avoiding for years. The next day, Sam recorded a short, private video message, not for the press, not for fans, but for Ian McKellen himself. He didn't reveal its contents to anyone, but those close to him said they had never seen Sam speak with such sincerity. Such humility, such resolve. Rehearsals continued, but the production felt changed. Every step Sam took, every word he delivered, carried the imprint of the message that had nearly broken him, and then rebuilt him. And somewhere across the world, when Ian McKellen eventually watched Sam's performance, he reportedly smiled and said only one sentence. Good. He embraced the darkness. For Sam, this wasn't just a role anymore. It was a turning point, one that would follow him for the rest of his career.